Well, I've certainly been a fair number of times when panic has reigned in Wall Street. And October 19, 1987, and the period around it. I mean, there was panic. At the close of business on Monday, October 19th, most of the specialist firms, which were important in those days on the New York Stock Exchange, were broke. And the next morning, there was a check due to the clearinghouse in Chicago that didn't get there. And sometime late in the morning, a decision, I think Phelan had made the decision, we're going to stay open. But it was really close. That was, and of course the financial panic. There were, you had 35 million people on September 1st that weren't worried at all about their money market accounts. On September 15th or 16th, they were all.
How concerned are you about the coronavirus situation, Warren?
Well, you got to defer to the doctors on that. But you can get into all these figures about how flu regularly kills 20 times as many people in this country as, or 40 times maybe as much as we've seen in the way of deaths, even more than that. But it is a pandemic. It is really spread. So we've got something that we don't know how long it'll be with us. We don't know how severe it'll be. But there will be uncertainty about that for a considerable period of time. There has to be.
What precautions are you taking personally? Have you changed any of your habits?
Well, I'm drinking a little more Coca-Cola, actually. That seems to have warded off everything else in life. I mean, I'm 89. I just had 2 different doctors tell me I'm in much better shape than I was a few years ago. I'm not sure what I'm doing to get in better shape. But by accident, I mean, I had an annual heart check where I wear something around my waist for a couple. I think I said it's never been better. So, no, I really, I'm a probabilities guy by nature. So there's going to be 2.8 million deaths this year, and at age 89, I'm a little more likely to be than I was in that group than 10. But 2.8 million, and what have we had so far? I mean, it will grow, but I've always felt a pandemic would happen at some time. I mean, I've actually used that term. I mean, in describing things that can interrupt the progress of not only this country but the world. It won't stop the progress of the country or the world. I mean, this is a terrible event that's occurring. We don't know how terrible, and it may not turn out to be that big a deal when we get through, but it may turn out to be a very big deal, and we just don't know, and I certainly don't know, and nobody knows. But there will be other things that happen in the world in the next 5, 10, 20 years. That's the way the world works. It's not a totally even course. The progress of mankind has been incredible, and that won't stop. I mean, you flew out here, yesterday or today, and you flew over a country that 250 years ago, there wasn't anything here. That's only 3 of my lifetimes, and there wasn't anything here. And now you've got all these bountiful farms, and you've got 260 million vehicles in the country, and you've got 80 million owner-occupied homes, and you've got 155 million or whatever it is, million people working. And I mean, it's incredible. I went, when I had a medical check the other day, I went to incredible medical facilities that are just 2 or 3 minutes from here, and that wasn't here. Wasn't even here 100 years ago, and so we keep making progress. We haven't forgotten how to make progress in this country, and we haven't lost interest in making progress, and that will benefit to varying degrees all kinds of people, including around the world. But there will be interruptions, and I don't know when they will occur, and I don't know how deep they will occur. I do know they will occur from time to time, and I also know that we'll come out better on the other end.
I was reading in your annual letter, on the other hand, that you're so proud of Berkshire Hathaway Energy, which is so big in wind power and has this whole different business model. So you think that alternatives actually have a real future?
Oh, alternatives have a future. They are the future over time. But you can't change the world, the base of the world. I mean, you've got 260 million vehicles on the road, or whatever number it is in the United States, and I don't know how many around the world. And they're not changing what they use tomorrow. And the average age of the American vehicle, the auto, I think is 11 to 12 years, something like that. And so the world can't change dramatically. And if anybody thinks you can change energy sources 10% in a year, it just doesn't work that way. But the world is going in the right direction in terms of working toward minimization of carbon.
Speaking of those cars, I mean, look at Tesla and what Elon Musk is doing. I mean, that kind of is a revolution, right?
Well, it's an important change, but if you guessed on the penetration of electric cars, let's say we sell 17 million or something a year in 2030, when I'll be 100. I would say that I'd be surprised if more than a third of those would be electric. Well, that's 2/3 of them aren't, plus all the ones in. So, of the total vehicles on the road, it still might be 10% electric tops or something like that worldwide. I mean, you can't change this mass of transportation. You can't change it in a year or two. It is changing. It should change. But in terms of just the math of replacing, if we said we're going to junk all the cars we have, well, the economy would stop. I mean, we can't produce them. We couldn't replace them.
What do you think of Elon Musk, though? If you met him, and would you invest in Tesla?
Well, I think you're trying to bait me a little.
I don't know. I'm just asking you. You can say no, and no, or yes,
listen,
yes,
he's done
yes.
some remarkable things.
Okay.
He's done some remarkable things.
Have you met him?
Oh yeah, he joined the Giving Pledge some years ago. That I've only met him once or twice, but yeah, that's it. I've talked with him, but not for quite a while.
And would you invest in Tesla?
No.
Okay. Let's switch over and talk about bond yields and interest rates, because that's a crazy subject right now.
It is a crazy subject.
And
it is really crazy.
Yeah. So what is your thinking on it?
I don't know. I have never been able to predict interest rates, and I've never tried. I don't. Charlie and I, we believe in trying to function on or to focus on what's knowable and important. Now, interest rates are important, but we don't think they're knowable. And there are some things that are, this gets back to, sounding, who was it, Don Rumsfeld or something?
Known knowns and unknown
yeah, and all
unknowns
that.
and unknown unknowns.
The question is the box that says knowns and important, knowable and important, is there anything in that box? And can you tell what's in that box and what isn't in that box? And it's what I call knowing your circle of competence. And my circle of competence doesn't include the ability to predict interest rates a day from now, or a year from now, or 5 years from now. So I say, can I function without knowing that? It's the same way as predicting what business is going to do or the stock market is going to do. I can't do any of those things. But that doesn't mean that I can't do well investing over time.
I mean, but things have changed. They're different now because rates are so low. You have negative rates.
It's unbelievable.
And then you were talking about Edgar Lawrence Smith and his discovery about bonds versus retained earnings. And then I think you were saying that it makes, as far as central banks, it makes no sense to lend at 1.4% and then to have 2% inflation.
Well, it doesn't make sense for you to buy bonds if somebody is telling you that they're going to try and destroy the unit in which the bond, the promise is included. They're going to try to destroy 2% of that a year, and for you to now receive maybe 0.5% and pay taxes on it.
Right. I mean, so where do you think these low super rates are going to go and negative rates? I mean, just what are the implications on?
Well, I would say that's the most important question in the world, and I don't know the answer. No, if we knew the answer, it wouldn't be the most important question.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like that, but
no, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask this way then: what has investing in equities changed given the interest rate environment? It makes equities look super
Yeah,
cheap.
no, it reduces the hurdle rate.
Right.
That's why they like to decrease it, is that it pushes asset values higher, because obviously if you promised to pay me something at 3% a year, that would have been a terrible instrument for me to own, almost any time in history. But today, if you're good for it, it's fabulous.
Right. I mean, did negative rates scare you, Warren?
They puzzle me, but they don't scare me.
Okay, fair enough. I want to switch over to Apple, one of your biggest holdings. Does the amount of shareholder interest in this company concern you or Todd or Ted? In other words, the market capitalization basically relative to the S&P 500. Is that something you look at?
Well, you look at everything and relate one to another. I mean, that's the nature of markets. So you're always trying to think about, A, what's in my circle of competence, and then what makes the most sense that's within that circle. But the important thing is to know where the perimeter of the circle is. I mean,
Right.
that's way more important than how big the circle is or a whole bunch of other factors. So I think Apple is within my circle of competence. I think it's an incredible business run by a fellow that's one of the great managers of all time, and he was underrated for a while, but now he's being seen for what he really is. It's an astounding. You could almost, if we had a card table here, well, yeah, we could put all their products on one table. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
I mean, and just think of basically the utility of those products to a ecosystem that is demographically terrific and finds that instrument useful in dozens and dozens of times a day. It's almost indispensable, not only to individuals, business, I mean everything.
And you have one of these babies now, right?
I've got one of them. I don't have an on name because I
Okay.
would be afraid it would ring and I wouldn't know what to do. And
It's okay. You can take a call during this. We wouldn't have a problem with that. And what sort of apps do you have? Do you have any apps loaded?
Well, they've got a lot of apps on it, but the other day, actually yesterday, I was someplace. Normally I don't carry it in town. I carry it out of town, but somehow I was having a little trouble just getting to the. But this is only me. Any 2-year-old could do this. But I was having a little trouble getting to the part where I actually phone somebody. I use it as a phone.
Right. So you're not.
But I got a lot of apps on it.
Have you used any of the apps?
No.
No gaming apps or.
No, people have shown them to me
Mhm.
occasionally. There's even some app with me involved on this newspaper boy tossing thing. It's the app that I revealed a year ago in the movie. I went out to California and Tim Cook very patiently spent hours trying to move me up to the level of the average 2-year-old, and it didn't quite make it. But I supposedly developed an app in this little movie we had, and as I walked out, I turned to Tim and I said, "By the way, what is an app?" We had a lot of fun. He is a terrific guy.
Right.
And that is an unbelievable product.
Just one more about those stocks, the so-called FANG stocks.
Yeah.
And again, does that approach a sort of bubble to you when you
No,
just
it's just
see?
the opposite. I mean, you're seeing in this kind of a market, those companies don't need capital. Well, Netflix needs capital. But basically, the big companies in market value don't need capital. And that will separate them from even more from the rest of the pack. I mean, they had an incredible business model. If you look at the top 10 market value of companies, go back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I mean, go back years. It's AT&T, the old AT&T, and General Motors, and Standard Oil in New Jersey, as it was called then.
Yep.
And the 500 you worked on it. And but those companies needed money. I mean, when Andrew Carnegie went in the steel business, he built one steel mill, made money on that, saved it. 3 or 4 years later, he built another one, and it was capital retention and oil, business the same way, whatever it was. And now, the really incredible companies, the ones that account for just the top 5, would be well over 10% of the market value of the country. They really don't take capital. they make it, their suppliers may in some cases and all that, but they are really overwhelmingly they're capital light, and that is really different.
Then the question is, why don't you own Google and Amazon, those two in particular? Let's take those
Well,
two.
that's a pretty damn good question, but I don't have a good answer. I definitely should have owned Google. The guys came to see me before they did when they were
Larry and Sergey?
Yeah, and we were. This is a long time ago. I mean, this was before they went public, but they were talking to me about a little bit about it, and we were using search at Geico in a significant way. So I knew the power of search, and I actually used search a lot myself, starting with all the Vista or something, going way back. And search is incredibly valuable to me, and it was valuable to Geico. So I was capable of understanding that. On the other hand, I had seen that Google was taking out all the Vista to some degree, and I thought, maybe somebody else can take out Google, and maybe if they'd started earlier, somebody else could have taken out Google. So I was always a step behind on that.
What do? Do you kick yourself? What does
No,
Warren
I
Buffett
don't.
do?
Because I made so many mistakes. If I tried to kick myself, my legs would be exhausted. I mean, you don't kick yourself in the investment, and incidentally, you don't can kick yourself when you make a mistake. I mean, it is part of what you do, and I was there when Ted Williams batted 406, but that means 594.
Right. And what about Amazon? Same kind of thing.
Incredible business.
But why it's not too late to buy these stocks, is it?
I don't know.
But you're not buying them right now.
No, but I don't buy much.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kind of businesses I think about a lot. Charlie thinks about them a lot. You can't help it. I mean, those are incredible business stories.
Right. I mean, so the door's not closed necessarily.
No.
Right.
Not at all.
Okay.
Well, actually, one of the other fellows now has bought a little Amazon. I mean, that showed up in our 13F.
Ted or Todd?
One of the two.
One of the two bought some Amazon? Right.
Yeah, that was in our 13F, yeah.
Right. There you go. You took the plunge.
Not me.
Berkshire took the plunge.
Berkshire. They can do anything they want to do. They can't short Berkshires, a few stocks.
And then speaking a little bit more about Amazon and Jeff Bezos, he owns the Washington Post.
Yeah.
They offered it to you, my understanding is, when it was for sale? Or, I mean, you talked to Don a lot.
I talked to Don a lot, sure.
And why? Do you regret not buying it, or did you not?
If I buy anything, it's got to be for Berkshire. I mean, I'm just committed that way. I'm mentally. Berkshire comes before me, and it would have been a mistake for Berkshire on the Washington Post.
Because of the political stuff?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
People would think. I will guarantee you that Jeff Bezos is not telling Fred Hyatt, or anybody there at Marty Burr. But I'll bet 80% of the people, or some huge number of people just generally think that if you own a newspaper, you tell them what to run every day. I mean, it's just that